We have Absolutely Bodari Talabi, the convener of the Akada Children and Book Festival, an accomplished author and publisher. He joins me right here in the studio. It's great to have you on the show, man. Good morning. Oh, good afternoon, actually. Good afternoon. I'm still stuck in the morning show at this point. That happens. Yeah. So, technically, talking about reading, at this point, most people do it for, leisure. They want to, just unwind. You just pick up a book, to read. But I'm trying to understand, the impact, to an economy. But we'll continue the conversation just right after this quick break. We'll take this quick break now. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Welcome back. Well, we're still talking about World Book Day 2026. And I still have with me right here Mr. Olubunmi Bodari Talabi. Thank you so much for staying with us. So, as I was saying before, reading is often seen as, leisure. Mm-hmm. But I'm wondering, how do you calculate the ROI, of reading, and why do business leaders actually need that? Because I've heard in the past about some men that didn't go to school, they don't know how to read, yes, but they've gone on to build big businesses, make so much money. Yes. Talk to me about that.
Yes, but those same men, marvelous entrepreneurs they may be, will require somebody to put structure in place, and the person that will put structure in place has to be someone who is learned, and that starts right from early childhood when they know how to read. What you'll find is that if a child naturally gravitates towards reading as they grow up, reading is less of a chore to them, and it helps them with their academic endeavors. So I want you to imagine when you have a situation where you have a group of graduates, people who graduate from university, but they still have a challenge with constructing proper sentences. It will affect businesses. Why? Because businesses who want to hire graduates will now have to wait, train them, make sure they understand before bringing them on board. That adds to the bottom line. It erodes margins. So there really is a business cost to having a country that's subliterate or not quite at its full literacy potential. Reading is vital, and it's easier if you start in childhood.
All right, so, there's so much short content now, yes, especially with social media. Yes. I'm always trying to get my kids off the phones, yes, at this point. I think they call it doom scrolling. Yes. Just keep scrolling all those videos. Yes. I keep telling them, go and read your book. Leave the phone. Leave all of that scrolling. It's tough. Parents are dealing with that issue.
Yes, we are.
Right now. So talk to me about how to, help with this matter. Is reading becoming a dying?
So it doesn't have to be a dying art, and I think the beginning is always with the parents. If you want your child to read more, let your child see you reading. So instead of you yourself...
I'm always reading, though. But...
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic, because children tend to emulate what they see. And of course, there's a lot of peer pressure out there. But if you start when they're young, which is why we have the Akada Children's Book Festival, which is why we encourage children's authors to write books for children, if you grab their attention while they're young and get them to understand why it's important to read, actually by not trying to ram it down their throats, but just get them to discover the treasures that are hidden in books. As they grow older, though there will be that temptation, and it is there, to doom scroll and just go on social media, to just idle away time. If you've built a habit of reading in the household, you've built a habit of reading together, you've built a habit of reading aloud since they were young, you've built a habit of doing book reviews, you've allowed them to select books that interest them, you're not forcing them to read books that are not appropriate for their age. All of these things will actually help you when you're trying to wean them off or try to stop them from getting sucked into the vortex that is social media.
So maybe I should stop trying to get them to read about inflation.
Aha, and let them read something that is interesting to them. So age-appropriate books are really important. So I have a lot of parents who ask me, how can I get my child to read more? And number one thing I always say is let them see you read. And number two is get them age-appropriate books. Now, it sounds basic, but not everybody seems to understand that a child that's 3 years old is really not interested in a heavy textbook. Give that child a picture book. And there's something that we need to change in terms of our mindset. In our culture, we seem to look at picture books as frivolous comics. They are anything but. What they are doing is building the cognitive ability of the child by attracting the child with bright pictures. And then the child can tell the story, follow the story, formulate the words. Picture books, I must add, usually have less than 500 words, but they can tell a complete story. And it can be about any subject. moving home, getting a new sibling, changing schools, moving to a different country, whatever. It can be about any subject. But the art of children's writing is that you distill a very complex idea into something that's simple, and then you package it and present it in a manner that's attractive to a child. When you attract the attention of the child, then the child can read, understand that there's benefit in reading, and then hopefully keep that habit as he or she grows older.
Right. You know, parents who spend so much paying for school fees.
Yes.
At this point. And sometimes we hope the schools can get them to read more. But it seems that's not happening. You know, at this point, is there a gap with what's going on in the school?
So the school will hopefully be doing its part, but parents at home can do their part as well. So at school, they have their wonderful academic textbooks, which is fantastic, which is great. But this essence, this idea, this culture of reading for pleasure, like, for example, let me digress and talk about what's happening in Norway. Right now in Norway, the government of Norway has a policy that they've instituted for reading enjoyment. I believe that's what it's translated into in English. They want, first of all, it was for children, but now they've expanded it to include adults as well. They want to have this idea of reading for fun instilled in their national psyche. Now, you have to wonder, why would a country do that? Why would they prioritize reading for fun? It's because they understand that if you can read, you are more likely to discover. If you can read, you're less likely to be bamboozled. You see, the devil is always in the details. And if you hide something in a contract, someone who doesn't like to read will skim, and they will miss something, then sign. And then later on, they'll be wondering, what did I sign? But if you have somebody who's used to reading, likes reading, when they come across voluminous or mischievous text, you know, craftily worded, they'll be able to decipher what is this person really saying compared to what they're telling me that they're trying to say. So reading for enjoyment is like the baseline, and it starts in childhood.
All right, so this is World Book Day.
Yes, it is.
What practical steps should businesses take to address this issue of literacy, and
yes.
I guess maybe private sector, public sector,
yes.
kind of collaboration?
So there's a heavy private sector cost that comes with having people who are not at their full literacy potential. So a company that I know desperately needed to hire a crop of graduates. And when they were interviewing the graduates who got 2-1s, who were given 2-1s and things like that, they were unfortunately surprised by their struggle in terms of grammar, in terms of syntax, in terms of being able to articulate what they were thinking, right, in writing. So that company took it upon itself to set up writing training programs for graduates. So before they graduate, they sit through this program, and then they now pick the best students from that program. So that additional cost is unfair to the business because it's adding to their cost of doing business. However, in the long run, that particular company was able to discover a crop of writers who basically brought value eventually. So you need someone, you need to have a long-term view per se, right? And just be patient with it and just understand that in this environment for now, this is an additional cost of doing business.
Right. I do hope I win the battle for my kids at this point, getting them to read for pleasure. And we all, you know, get our kids reading
yes.
more at this time.
There are many books out there for
yeah.
children, and there are many platforms out there that encourage children's authors to come forward and showcase their books so that parents and teachers and caregivers can actually discover new books for children. And the idea is to have a variety of books for children so that they're not stuck for what to do, and so that they regard reading as a bona fide recreational activity,
right.
not just doom scrolling.
Not just doom scrolling. The doom scrolling is too much. Thank you so much. It was great having you for this conversation. Mr. Olubunmi Aboderin-Talabi, convener of the Akada Children and Book Festival. Thank you so much for coming. I like the way you speak. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.